Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. It'll be quite nice. Have a good time. You'll be very evil. And you'll love that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as being the Elite and Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cell.
And then now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the power.
Listen to the podcast. Subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're going to have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy Saturday once again, everyone. How is it going? Good Mic Work Commentaries back at you with your July 3rd, 2021 edition of the Winged Eagle Podcast. For those of you living here in the United States, I hope you're having an excellent holiday weekend so far. Tomorrow is Independence Day, the 4th of July. Usually a pretty big deal here as long as there's not a pandemic, and a lot of people are going to be barbecuing, beaching, doing summertime stuff, playing in the sprinkler, all that good shit. I hope you guys have a great weekend or are having one right now. You're probably busy. You're probably not home. I'm probably not going to have much of an audience tonight. Maybe you're like me and you're home, or you're out there doing shit. If you're not, maybe you're doing stuff tomorrow, like I'm sure we all are. But for those of you that are here and are going to join us this afternoon, just want to let you know that I appreciate you being here on a holiday weekend when I'm sure you got some other options. So I'm glad to be here with you, and we're going to kind of have a short one today because as you've been noticing, I've been kind of splitting up the podcast a little bit and doing a midweek podcast to where I'm not cramming so much stuff into this Saturday episode because, you know, that's a lot of work and stuff. So it's more fun to kind of break it up, you know, do an NXT and AEW recap, talk about wrestling news, and then come up here and talk about SmackDown on Saturday. So I'm going to try to get this a little bit more consistent as we go through the summer here, a little bit of a rebranding currently going on behind the scenes for some of this stuff. And, you know, by the end of the summer, by SummerSlam, we'll have a nice consistent schedule back up here on the channel. So a few things and changes happening right now, and I appreciate all your patience dealing with this. In terms of what's on the menu for today, it's going to be pretty simple. We're going to talk about last night's SmackDown, which had a couple of disappointing things on there, but had a couple of really great things, and specifically Edge. And, you know, we're getting that Edge versus Roman feud and match that, you know, we should have gotten at WrestleMania time, but it just, you know, it was falling flat. Now there's more of a story there. Now Edge has more, you know, something to prove. And this is like how the story feels like it should have been all along. So that's great stuff. And Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens gave us, I think, one of the best Thunderdome matches we've seen in its entire history of pandemic wrestling last night as well. So we'll talk about that. We'll do a full preview of Money in the Bank as well, run through the whole card as we have it right now. They're probably not going to add too much more to it based on the matches we have, the big 4 title matches and the 2 Money in the Bank matches. Might not be a whole lot of room for anything else, but we'll preview that card. We'll talk about who could possibly walk away with these briefcases, who's going to walk out with the championships, and what the plans for SummerSlam might be. We'll get into a lot of that stuff. We'll chat. I'll answer some questions, try to engage as much as I can with the comments here. Read the super chats, all that good stuff. So that's kind of what we're going to get into, and a couple of scheduling notes for you as well in terms of some good WWE content coming up as well. So before we get into anything, though, let me just say hi to everybody that is here in the chat, and I just want to get the current patrons on Patreon pulled up real quick so I can just say hello to all of them and shut my phone off so it'll stop vibrating, and we'll get going here. Let me scroll back up to the top of the chat. If I can find it, there we go. Good to see Richie Williams in here. Yeah, long time, man, and it does feel like a long time since the coronavirus began. Making sure I could hear myself there. All right, Paul Carpenter back. Fan since 2013. Holy shit, that's 8 years ago now? My God. Good to see Stone Cold and Nate and Charlie and David and Jet the Hawk and Sam B. Blair. Chaz B. Blair again. George Morris is back. Thanks for the $5, man. I appreciate that. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? Just found out that Sam from Different Strokes is currently in prison for 60 years for sex crimes against teenage girls. Yikes. Sam from Different Strokes. Who the hell was Sam? He wasn't Willis and Arnold and the sister. Was he the little white boy? Was he a little ginger kid that kind of joined the cast? That might have been who Sam was. I don't know. I forgot all about him. I haven't even seen Different Strokes since I was a little wee mic work. Well, that's gross. Ugh, gross. Yeah, I don't know if I really want to know the details on that, but that's good to know. That show has been loaded with tragedy. I know the sister, I forget her name now. I believe she took her own life, had a lot of problems with drugs, and I think the guy who played Willis was kind of in and out of issues as well. Yeah, what a show. I remember it, though. I used to watch it as a kid. John Gorman, appreciate the $5 from you. Hey, Greg, first time super chat. Love the podcast. Are you excited, maybe is what you mean, for Great American Bash and Road Rager next week? AEW finally back on the road. John, thanks for being here for the first time. Yes, I'm extremely excited for Great American Bash. We're going to preview a little bit more of that next week. And then we've got Road Rager, I believe, coming up this coming Wednesday. So seeing AEW back on the road is really great. They sent off Daly's Place in an amazing way last week, and just a phenomenal show that I love top to bottom. I'm hoping that WWE can kind of do something fun for the end of the Thunderdome. I would love it if they did something where they blew it up or they burned it, just burn the thing to the fucking ground, or in like Office Space, so, when the guys take the printer out to the field and they just beat the shit out of it, do something like that with all the wrestlers, with the same gangster song that was playing in the movie, and the wrestlers have got bats and they're kicking, they're stomping the video screens or whatever. I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit too violent. But I would love some sort of, because Daly's place was sent off in a loving way, because Daly's place wasn't digitally created. It was an actual place, and that was their home for, 15 or 16 months, whatever it was. So they kind of sent it off nicely. With the Thunderdome, even though it was much better than the Performance Center, I think we could all agree we are fucking tired of the Thunderdome. So I would love to blow it up. Or, or like I said, or burn it, or just do something cool. Back when, in the Attitude Era, when Big Show first came in, I think WWE had purchased like a new Titantron or a new big screen. So they had no use for the old one. So like on the last night that they used it, Big Show and I think Steve Austin fucked it up. They like pulled it down. He pulled it down and then they tore through the vinyl or whatever it was that made up the screen. So it would be cool if they destroyed the Thunderdome in some way. I hope they do. Wubio, the Cocker Spaniel's here. JL. Sonic is here as well. Good to see you. Domination Warrior. Ben. George Morris with another $2. What is your opinion? Pearl is the only good one. Oh God, I gotta try to remember this show again. Pearl must have been maybe the housekeeper or something. Yeah, that show was interesting though, and there was one super gnarly episode where one of the guys was trying to molest Arnold and one of his friends in like the back of a bike shop. It's messed up. The shit that they would put on TV in the early 80s. You could never do something like that, at least portray it the way it was in modern times. Hell no. Good to see Tom in here as well. And Michael Cuomo. All right, that's got everybody at least for the moment. Do me a favor and smash the thumbs up button for me. And subscribe if you haven't, because videos are coming. And tomorrow is a little bit up in the air. I'll let you know about tomorrow in 1 second. I just want to shout out all the current patrons on Patreon. JJ Legg and Nikita Abalakin, Chris Miner, Super Fluffy Toaster, Deshaun Robinson, Jay Smooth, Martin Can, Apron Bump Podcast, Dre Leggett, Alan Carter, Brandon Yelverton, Nick Musser, Jimmy Anderson, K-Dogs Kennel, Ryan Y, Devlin Husband, John Redifer, Claudio Clavadetster, Daniel Rodriguez, Barry MK, Josiah Blevins, Mr. Steve, Scott Moss, John Riffle, Michael Cuomo, Naveed, Keith Salyers, and Blake Moran. Thanks as always, guys. Barry, I don't even know if you're here. My parents are on your island right now, vacationing. I'll be there with them next year, but they're there now with their friends, living it up, having a good old time. Anyway, let's cruise back here to the chat. All right, we're all good. The Richie Williams, the Patriot passing away, took place on Thursday, and I learned of the news literally about 2 minutes before we were scheduled to go live. So I delayed the podcast like 5 minutes just to kind of read the basic information I could on it, and gave my opinions and my memories of the Patriot a little bit on Thursday, although they were completely off the cuff because I had literally just read the news and was a little bit shocked by it. And thought that was awfully sudden. And I know Patriot has had issues in the past. He had a very, very heavy pill addiction that he was open about and talked about. And he just recently did an interview with Sean Ross Sapp to be released tomorrow on Independence Day. I believe he's going to go ahead and release that according to Fightful. And, he was doing interviews just up until a few weeks ago. So apparently died of a massive heart attack, only 59 years old. He had a very interesting run. I remember seeing he worked a lot in Japan, and then he was in WCW. And I thought for some reason he had passed through just briefly in the AWA. I thought I had seen him come through some of those ESPN shows, maybe like one or two, but I can't remember if I even saw him prior to Japan footage or WCW. But his WCW run with Bagwell and, his matches in Japan and stuff he was over. He was over in both places. So when they brought him into WWE in 97, his run there was really, really short, but it was memorable because he was right in the thick of that Canada-USA feud. He even has a victory over Bret Hart on Monday Night Raw, got a title shot against him at a pay-per-view. And he used what would become Kurt Angle's theme song. There's a lot of guys that used it. Mark Henry even briefly used Kurt Angle's theme song when he was still, he was using it on house shows. I would go to house shows around that time when Mark was, he came back in, but then they sent him down, and then they're trying to, get him ready to come back or whatever. And he was in between that time, he was working some of the house shows using that theme song as well. It sounded a little bit different, and it got revised with Angle, but that theme goes back a long way to the Patriot. So really sad kind of ending for him. Check out the interview when Sean or Fightful releases that, because I read a couple of little tidbits of that and what is in there, and some of the heat he apparently has with Tom Brandi, which I didn't even know existed. I didn't even know Tom Brandi still existed. And Tom Brandi was he played Salvatore Sincere in WWE. They brought him in with that big crew of like Tracy Smothers and Dirty White Boy and God, who else? Bill Irwin, I think, came in. And a lot of, that was like the Goon and the Teal Hopper and that sort of era. That's when they brought him in. So that was just like a totally and really strange and odd time when I think about that, because when they had, that was also when they brought in Anvil to be Who, if you remember that, in like 96. And I remember like just turning on the TV one day and I'm like, who the hell are all these guys? And one of the most obnoxious ones was Tom Brady as the Salvatore Sincere with the hat and the pink and oh my God, blah, blah, blah. Well, apparently he's been using the Patriot gimmick on the independent scene. I had no idea about this. It's been going on for decades, apparently. He stole the gimmick without Del Wilkes' permission. Del's been hot at him ever since and apparently wanted to fight him. So there was some heat there that I never knew existed. I don't even know how you could make something like that up. I guess I don't pay attention to indie results or even indie match cards or anything like that I've even seen Tom Brady's name anywhere around in wrestling in over 20 years. I can't remember the last time I even thought about him. So when I kind of read that little tidbit, I'm interested to see Del Wilkes' interview. So check that out. But rest in peace to Del Wilkes. He, I think he had a rough go of it in life, and he battled a lot of issues and stuff. And he had a kind of a tumultuous run there, but he still had a memorable gimmick. It was simple and direct and to the point. Big jacked up guy with a lucha mask, red, white, and blue. Very generic name in the Patriot, but he got over, and he was a big star in multiple territories, and that's not easy to do. So he deserves at least a place in wrestling history as a career to be remembered, somewhat fondly. So condolences to his family and his friends. It's a shame that another wrestler lost at a ridiculously young age. 59 is just a little bit young, especially when you live your life, from a fitness perspective in a very healthy way. You live it in a very unhealthy way, with some of the bad decisions you can make. And unfortunately, it digs a lot of these men very, very early graves. So that's a shame. Rest in peace to the Patriot. Oh, nice. There's Barry. It's nice and sunny on the island. Yeah, man, I can't wait to get out there. I didn't know anything about Peacock using WWE fan art. Didn't know that. What, like in their thumbnails and shit? Or just in general? Wasn't even aware. I got no real opinions on it. I'm cool with it, I suppose. But yeah, anyway, rest in peace to the Patriot. Let's start getting into some of the stuff we're going to talk about today. A couple of good WWE Network, or Peacock, I should say, content coming up on the horizon. Number one is tomorrow. Lex Luger, Icons doc. So far, the Icons doc have been great. They've done Yoko, they've done Beth Phoenix, and I think they've done RVD. Help me if they've done another that I've forgotten, but those are the ones I can at least remember. They're really well done, and Lex Luger is an interesting story, because I mentioned a little bit of this on Thursday, that I remember everything about Lex Luger, specifically his WWE run, which I think they're probably going to focus a lot on since it's a WWE documentary. And that specifically because of my huge love for Bret Hart. By the way, happy belated birthday to Bret the Hitman Hart. I believe he turned 63 yesterday. So Bret's the best, man. Happy birthday to Bret. But because of my love for Bret Hart around that time, Lex Luger was an obstacle for me. He was somebody that I just loathed the whole time he was there from a Mark perspective, because when he came in, he was the narcissist and he was the douchebag heel. And then he attacked Bret around WrestleMania 9, even kind of used that as one of the reasons why Bret might have lost the title. They began to go into a feud with each other. I'm surprised they actually didn't meet in the finals of the King of the Ring. That's what I would have done. But they were about to kind of enter this feud with each other, and then Hogan left, and they decided to create this new born-again Hogan with Lex Luger in the red, white, and blue, and body slam Yokozuna on the deck of the USS Intrepid 28 years ago tomorrow, when he dropped out of that helicopter and slammed Yokozuna, got the title shot at SummerSlam, and from then on, it felt like WWE was putting him ahead of Bret, and it pissed me off. But luckily, it didn't only piss me off, it pissed a lot of people off, and the fans let the WWE know that they didn't want Lex, they wanted Bret, and then he did the double winner at the Royal Rumble, and Bret won the belt at WrestleMania 10. But during that whole time span there, like, I remember almost every Luger match, every Luger moment, and it's going to be interesting for me to watch that one. So, I'm not guaranteeing anything for tomorrow. Tomorrow's a little bit iffy. I know it's a holiday. A lot of people have things to do. I don't even know really what I'm doing yet, but I plan to watch this Lex Luger doc as early as possible. So if there is time, you might see an impromptu live stream tomorrow night where we're going to review the documentary. If not, we'll talk about it on Monday. But keep that in mind. I might be up here to talk about the Luger stuff because I think that's going to be a good episode. And I'm also really excited to see 1 week from tomorrow, July 11th, the next Broken Skull Sessions guest is going to be Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash in Austin. Drinking some Jack. Yes, please. So that'll be next week. That's going to be good. So at least we got a couple of really good, kind of alternative content to just the regular wrestling shows coming up in the next week. That's awesome. So you'll probably hear my thoughts on both of those within the week. I'm just not sure yet where those thoughts are going to come. So keep an eye out tomorrow. Just make sure you're around, eyeball my Twitter or whatever, because I might come up and talk Lex Luger. We'll see. Anyway, let's talk about Lana, or I should say CJ Perry, a.k.a. Lana, formerly known as Lana, was a guest on Talk is Jericho. She went to Jericho's house. They sat down, and they had about an hour and a half-ish long podcast discussing her time in WWE and her release from the company and just a lot of, things in general about her time there, which she said she spent 8 years in the company. It's amazing how the years fly by now. When I was a kid, to be in the WWE for 8 years was a long time. Even when The Undertaker was doing that Decade of Destruction thing, I'm like, damn, he's been around forever. Now 10 years feels like 2 days. So she's been there 8 fucking years. That's crazy. And she got into a lot of just random stuff about the company. And I think some of the more telling and some of the comments that got the most attention, at least on social media, and I tried to listen to almost the whole thing, but I didn't get to listen to all of it, but most of it, and I picked out some of the important stuff that she said. But a lot of the things she said about WWE's creative and the creative process is what a lot of fans were the most interested in, because we are not blind and we are not stupid. All you have to do is watch Monday Night Raw for more than 11 minutes to find out that these fuckers don't know what the hell they're doing. And they don't follow through with literally anything. And they start and they stop and they just don't tell stories at all. They suck so bad about it. They've kind of openly admitted to this. They're more about the moment than they are the story. But stories are important. And when you see how good WWE can make some stories when they want to, when they actually put forth the effort to tell a good story, with the energy and the investment that's put into Roman Reigns, with the amazing, rivalry that Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens have, although the most of the credit goes to them. And there are a few things here and there that when they want to do it, it's some of the best shit we've ever seen. They have the ability to tell good stories if they want to. But I think the old man is a big problem now. And I always try to, stick up for Vince as best as possible, but I think, he is really, really affecting the product negatively, especially when you hear all these stories coming out. These people aren't lying, to say, that Vince freaks out and rewrites the story 14 times every fucking day. Like, we hear that from multiple people. It's not a conspiracy against Vince. These things are actually happening. And for Lana to kind of give a few examples about, the weirdness that went on, she's spent 19 hours there one day to do a 60-second backstage. And even that isn't even guaranteed to air just because of, the nature of Vince and creative and changing his mind and deciding to cut shit. And you would think that if they overthink everything this much and they micromanage everything this much and they decide that something is unfit for TV, I'm surprised they don't decide that all this shit is unfit for TV. I'm just surprised that the quality isn't any better when it really sounds like they're analyzing every single little minute detail. At the end of SmackDown last night, when Edge was attacking Jimmy Uso, we had 12 camera cuts within 8 seconds of that beatdown. They spend so much attention to detail, but yet the one spot and the one place that you really should pay attention to detail, it's a complete clusterfuck. It's unbelievable, some of the stories you hear on a repeated basis. And with Lana, this didn't sound like, I'm sure she's getting this type of heat and hate or whatever, but, this doesn't sound like somebody that's, got sour grapes and she's going out dragging WWE through the mud. These are real, actual things that happened. That the talent is frustrated with. If I was working there and I got released, you bet your ass I'd do a podcast, because it would be years of frustration of having to deal with them making the dumbest fucking decisions, that make no sense. They're just jerking you around, messing with your career. They just don't give a fuck about anything. And, you have to endure that for nearly a decade. When you get out of there, you probably are going to want to say, oh my God, you're not going to believe this one time. I can totally understand that. So she didn't come off in this entire interview as anybody that was bitter or upset. The story of her release was heartbreaking. She was in the middle of a party. Her parents were there. Her family was there. Miro was there. She was in a social environment or social situation where she was on the phone being told that she's being cut. You know, it's like heartbreaking, but she wasn't up there saying, fuck this company and blah, 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 or whatever. You know, she was honest about her time there. So I thought she came off very well and in terms of what she said. And some of the stories about the creative is, you know, we'll probably hear more of this from some of the really stars that just kind of, you know, really got messed with a lot. But some of the key points there, she talked about the weird and odd situation in the Performance Center when the pandemic first started. And I can only imagine being backstage, especially at the very beginning when you're like just a couple days away from WrestleMania. And as Jericho and her were talking about, it was the most dangerous and scary time of the pandemic when it first started because we really didn't know what the hell. The world's never shut down before. You know, we've never had, we've never not been able to leave our houses and shit like that. So that was all really weird. But the wrestlers aren't living that life that the rest of the world is. They're still there and working for WWE, a company that is still bound and determined, no matter what, to put on content. And she said she flew down to Florida with like 5 people on her plane, and it was just a really scary, weird time. And then trying to produce and having to produce TV in 5 months, 4 or 5 months inside the Performance Center was ridiculous, and it was just odd, and it was small, and all that nonsense. Well, during that time, because they were taping so many shows in advance, they were taping shit, and I think that's where she brought up the 19 hours at TV just to do a 60-second backstage. And then there was one segment where they did a backstage segment where she was managing Natalya, and this was supposed to tie in with the debuting Chelsea Green. But then when Vince saw it, he was like, cut the whole thing. And then Chelsea never debuted. And then when she did, she broke her wrist, and then she got released. Like, it's just a mess just because of Vince on a whim says, I don't like that, just cut it. Like, why? You know, you went through it. So she said when they finally made the Thunderdome and they were back to doing kind of live TV, it was a relief because now they can't overthink it. Now Vince can't just decide to cut something after you've spent so much time doing it. So she kind of outlined a lot of examples like that with the creative process and just how fucked up it is. And unless they really, really care, you know, nobody can just go anywhere there because there's just no stories. That everything is just so fucking bad. And it's more frustrating when we know they can do it when they want to. When WWE decides they want to follow through with a good story, they can. So why aren't they? Isn't that the most frustrating part of all this? You know, it's just, why is it like that? Why is this, what should be a pretty simple process, so fucking difficult in this company? It's insane. She talked a little bit about the Thunderdome itself and the fans. You know, obviously we know the Thunderdome is rigged. That's what she used to call it. The Thunderdome was rigged. The Thunderdome won the election. And she talked about the piped-in chants and, how it works in a way, but at the same time, it's so inauthentic. And, the fans are, kind of at home. We all know this. They're told when to cheer, told when to boo. And Jericho brought up a good point about back in WCW when they would do like the worldwide tapings and stuff at MGM. That was when they were using that soundstage to produce their TV, which means they're not having wrestling fans come to the shows. People, it's just an attraction. It's a ride, like the Back to the Future ride or the Jaws ride, or the Star Wars ride. You'd go do that, and then you'd go see wrestling. And so you'd sit there, and they would be queuing the fans up, and you could tell that. Remember back in the day in WCW, would have that rotating ring, and the fans did seem extremely generic. They might as well have been video screens because they were just, they looked like they were on a game show, like they were being told exactly when to cheer and exactly when to boo, and they would have, thumbs up and thumbs down, lights up on the video screen for the fans to be able to react properly to whatever wrestler was coming out there. And that's a very strange way to produce TV, and it's really the closest thing wrestling has come to that since then with the Thunderdome. So it's kind of interesting to hear her thoughts just on the Thunderdome itself. And she talked about the follow-through, which we've talked about, I don't know, relentlessly here on the podcast, is they just don't follow through with anything. And if they do, sometimes it can be pretty good. But there's this constant just changing minds of Vince especially that I think is really harming this, and we've heard it for years. It's just time for this nonsense to stop because you have so much good talent there that if given the right stories could probably do really, really well with them. But you get an idea, you think it's great, you run with it, and by the next week you forget you even did it. And that's why I think from a storytelling perspective, AEW does a much better job. They follow through with shit. How long have they been planting these seeds for what's eventually going to be Kenny Omega and Hangman Page? The only thing in WWE that's going to ever rival something like that is that Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are going to have like a lifelong strong rivalry, which I think is awesome, and I'm glad that WWE is treating seriously, and we'll talk about that later. But when it comes to the stories, AEW does it better. WWE just seems way too discombobulated. And you can tell that on TV, rematches after rematches after rematches. We'll talk about Zelina Vega in a minute, but she was on Talking Smack after her debut last night, after she lost in her debut or her return, saying that she has unfinished business with Bianca Belair. I'm like, girl, you need to get a win under your belt first, or maybe win that briefcase. And last I remember, Bianca Belair beat you like 10 times on TV. I think your business is finished. There's nothing unfinished about it. So they just they don't even remember what they do. The fans remember this shit better than them. So she outlined a lot of that. So one of those examples of not following through that she mentioned was the Hurt Business. And a lot of talent was like, what the fuck? I mean, the Hurt Business was working. We liked the Hurt Business. Despite Raw's problems, we praised the Hurt Business every week. Everybody in the Hurt Business, it was good for them to be there. Gave Shelton something to do. Gave a young talent like Cedric Alexander some rub with some big, tough hombres. I mean, Shelton and Bobby Lashley are no fucking joke. You know, if I'm Cedric, that's where I want to be. And MVP, one of the best mouthpieces we've seen, you know, in modern WWE. So, or in the last few years anyway. So it was a really good overall package. And what did they do? They broke them up. Just like Lana and Rusev, broke them up. They can't sit still on anything and let anything grow at all, you know, unless they're just pressured or for whatever reason. I don't know how the New Day has survived based on WWE's booking philosophy. You would think New Day would have been split up in the first 2 years of being together. You know, somehow they've survived all of this. She talked about the Survivor Series, which I thought was interesting. This was last year. This was when The Undertaker had his 30-year retirement. And she talked about the finish. Now, as we remember, Lana was the sole survivor in that team. She was the lone babyface amongst all of the heels. So I guess the plan was not originally what we saw. The plan was for Lana to actually get in there and wrestle, because Lana's story was she wanted to prove herself, but all the heels felt her unworthy, inferior, shouldn't be in the match. They weren't going to allow her in the match. Well, I guess the plan was for her to do a table spot and all this other stuff involved in her eventually actually getting in the ring and winning the right way, rolling somebody up or beating them or whatever, getting Lana over, you know, kind of proving herself. That was the story. Well, it all began with the table spot. And this was just an absurd story to me, because she said, I guess Roman Reigns had an issue with the table spot because he had a table spot later on with Sheamus, which I'm like, what? That's so old school. That's so 90s. You would hear stories like that when the product was different and you didn't see so much shit going on in the same match. And you'll still see it now if you have, you know, some super move planned. But something like a table spot is not like a table spot in the 90s. A table spot in the 90s, yeah, you might not want to have that in back-to-back matches or something like that, because it's not really what you did, and one could take away from the other. That's not really the case anymore. We see so many of them, and they're so regular that I don't even think twice about a table spot. So that's a little bit ridiculous that Roman's got that old school mentality. I mean, he's a Samoan. I mean, they're so thick into wrestling, they'll probably all have that instilled in them, which is not a bad thing, but that was a silly thing, I think, to have an issue with. Roman is like the main event guy. The last fucking thing in the world Roman Reigns should care about is the women's elimination match, you know, that's going to wind up turning into a joke. So apparently Nia Jax, because her and Roman are family, they went and kind of argued about it for a little bit, but, you know, Roman didn't want it or whatever, so they had to cancel the table spot, which then made them in turn rethink the whole outcome. And she said that Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon, who apparently has been working pretty closely with Vince through the creative stuff, thought that her not entering the match and winning it that way would be the most hilarious thing they'd ever heard, because it's never been done. And they basically, this is an example that we've seen a lot. Vince has been doing this for years, but a lot of times he does shit that amuses himself, not realizing that Lana has been working her ass off to tell this story here of wanting to prove herself, of wanting to improve, of trying to get better, of working out with Natalya and TJ and really trying to get better in the ring. She wants to get better. She wants to win. She wants to compete. But you guys have this crazy idea, oh, wouldn't it be funny? Yeah, and it was kind of funny, you know, but, you know, you don't think about what that's doing to, you know, the progress that Lana's been trying to make. So it's little things like that that was just a constant source of frustration for not only her, but probably everybody there that deals with this shit all the time. So, you know, you almost listen to this and like, I can't imagine what it's got to be like to work there. I mean, unless you're like top, super top tier talent, the Romans, the Edges, the Drews, the Daniel Bryans, or guys like that, you can probably trust them to care a little bit more about you. But everybody underneath, there's no real organization to these stories at all. And, as we'll talk about here in a minute with SmackDown, you know, what Baron Corbin is doing, I think is really good so far. You know, so when it just proves that when WWE just puts a little thought into something and you have the right person executing this, it can be really good, and it should be so much more of a common thing. You know, Baron Corbin has given 110% into this sad Baron Corbin gimmick, you know, where he is just personally and physically and emotionally defeated, letting his hair grow out, sulking around, you know, like just wants to give up on life. He's pulling it off. And if they follow through with this could be good. It could be a whole new career path or birth for Baron Corbin, because he's already undergone so many different transformations and never really been able to really find his niche. You know, the lone wolf, okay, you know, constable, okay, king, whatever. You know, he's never taken that next step or transition in his career. He's largely just been a douchebag regardless of whatever name he goes by. So the fact that they're doing something right here, at least initially, just makes me worry, number one, they'll fuck it up. Or, you know, maybe they'll actually care and show that when they want to, they can make good content and they can make good TV. So I just wish they would do it. They would do it more often. But they talked a lot about her run there. She, you know, recalled some of the feuds that her and Rusev had with John Cena and how they got called up in their time in NXT. And how she got over. And we were getting the We Want Lana chants, and that's when Vince split them up, and he put her with Dolph. And she talked about the differences between how she was treated by the dirt sheets or the smart fans or Twitter compared to the live audience. And she gets reactions in the live audience, but Twitter and everywhere else tends to be a little negative, treats her with a lot of disrespect, and she's right about that. They do. You know, Lana has never been written about fondly, you know, but she gets like reactions from the audience. So she seemed to be somebody that just wasn't going out there just relying on the fact that she's just a hot blonde chick. She's actually trying to get better, trying to improve, and for some reason wants the approval of these asshole fans that shit on her so often. She was actually out there working hard and busting her ass, which is what she said was told to her by Johnny Ace, who made the phone call. And that's when she said she had flown. I guess she had her family there to bring them down for a vacation and all of that. She was even starting to in talks with WWE about doing some sort of a new show or something outside of WWE that WWE had approved. And they were talking about that even the day before, as she recalls. And so she kind of picked up the phone, hey, what's up? And then he's like, Johnny Ace is like, calling to tell you about your 90 days, you know, and they're releasing you and all that. And he goes, you know, stay close by, and you worked your ass off. We wish you the best, that kind of thing. He was very kind of professional about it. And she said she preferred him over Mark Carrano because Mark Carrano was, you know, tried to be more of like, you know, friends with the wrestlers and be a little more buddy or homies with them. And that call might have been a little bit weird from him. But said that he thanked her and everything, and then that was it. But she said, you know, her family was there. It's like how CM Punk got fired on his wedding day or whatever. Not that he gave a shit. He was probably relieved to get that. But, you know, she was told that right in the middle of a family gathering. That's got to be such odd timing. That sucks. But she also mentioned how she did feel a sigh of relief, even though she wanted to be in WWE. The relief that came over her was something noticeable, and I can totally understand that. You know, I bet, you know, it's like it's a combination. I've left a job before that there was a job for a long time. I mean, it was you know, I built a career there, and it is a little bit scary when you leave that, but the relief you feel of not being under that pressure anymore is tremendous. You know, it's a great feeling, even though your future is a little bit unsure. And unlike me, you know, Lana's probably a little bit more financially set than I was, you know, at that time. So I was taking even bigger risk and really, you know, jumping into a world with not knowing how I'm going to, you know, be, you know, paying my bills in a few months. But with her, the relief she feels of just not having to be under that constant pressure of being released. She said in her next contract she wants a no-cut clause. I don't know if that's really realistic, but she said that she had been dreading and worried about a potential release her entire time there. It's probably like being in prison and worried you're going to get shanked or something. You know, you just constantly have to have this just aura of stress around you that every wave of releases or anything you might do wrong or whatever, WWE could just up and release you one day after you've spent your entire life You know, 8 years. I don't know how old Lana is, mid-30s, early 30s, I'm guessing. She's been there for 8 years. She's been there a quarter of her life, most like. A quarter of her life. 25% of her life she spent there. So just to cut that off with a phone call, you know, is got to be weird. But the relief and just the sense of freedom and the liberation you must feel from that has got to be a pretty good feeling as well. So she seems like she's holding up just fine. Luckily for her husband is a big deal in AEW right now. He's wearing a championship. I'm sure the minute she's available to go there, she can go there if she so chooses to or whatever. I mean, she's talking to Jericho here, and she's already kind of got one foot over there. You know, the fact that she's married to a champion and now she's in Jericho's house, and slowly and surely, unless WWE just decides no, we don't want her to go over there, and then they try to lure her back or something like that. I suppose it's possible, but. In terms of what they did with her, I think it would be good for her just to go somewhere else for a while and just live outside that WWE system. And it'd probably be you might clear her head, clear her brain. I would never rule out her and Miro both returning to WWE one day. Wouldn't rule that out at all. I actually think it's a likely possibility, but that can be way in the future. Until then, it's a good experience for both of them, really, and especially her to kind of get outside of that, work with some different people, work in a different system, and maybe get a little bit better understanding of, wrestling from different perspectives and stuff, work with a different group of legends. And she will recognize a lot of people there. There's a lot of people she's already worked with, but some people that she has not. And to work for a boss that's not Vince has got to be nice because, like I said, when I was comparing the situation to when I left a job, I had a boss that was very, very much like Vince McMahon. I even laugh looking back on it how similar they really were, and they had just a lot of similar demeanors, and, they can make crazy decisions and get really angry, and expect a lot of you and be super demanding, and you would want to fucking choke them and punch them in the face so many times. But they were really good at what they did. They taught you a lot. You learned from them. And without them, you wouldn't have the career you have now. But you still, wanted to strangle them sometimes. And it felt so good to come work for a boss here on the West Coast that was not a sociopath. And Lana can now go through that same thing, and work for somebody that's not just batshit fucking nuts, surrounded by a bunch of yes men and comedy writers that don't know the names of the WWE champions. Might be better for her. So we wish Lana luck. It was a good interview. If you haven't heard it, check out Web is Jericho. You can find the podcast over there. You can find it anywhere. Just search it. It'll turn up. Give it a listen. A little bit over an hour long. It's worth it. And you'll hear all of Lana's thoughts. So that's my opinions there. We'll get into SmackDown here in a minute. Let me cruise back up here to the chat and see if you guys have anything interesting to say. I know I got at least one super chat coming in from Jimmy Anderson way across the pond in Sweden. Thank you so much for that, man. I appreciate it. Happy 4th of July to all of us Americans. Yeah, we got a big one here tomorrow, drinking beer and eating hot dogs. Yippee. And celebrating our Independence Day. Maybe we'll watch the movie. I don't know. Did anybody ever see the second one? Didn't they make a second one? Probably sucked. There's no Will Smith and stuff. I don't think I saw the second one. It's probably ridiculous. Bill Pullman, pretty awesome TV president or movie president, one of the best. Danny, greetings from Scotland, man. Good to see you in here. A lot of overseas in here today. That's awesome. Do you think Edge will win at Money in the Bank? I'd be fine with it if he did, but no, I don't. I just think they're setting up Seth Rollins in him, like it feels like anyway. Seth, we're going to talk about that in a minute, has got a good point. He was kind of told that he was going to get a shot, and then they gave it to Edge, and now he's pissed. He's got a chance to qualify for Money in the Bank next week, whether he does or doesn't, and if he wins the briefcase or not, especially if he doesn't win the briefcase, I could definitely see him costing Edge the title, setting up Edge and Seth at SummerSlam so Roman can work with Cena. That's what I'm guessing anyway, but feels like that's what they're setting up. But if he did win, it would be awesome. I love Psycho Edge. I love, business Edge. He was not playing any games last night, and I love that. So it feels like this is what I wanted out of this feud from the beginning with Edge and Roman, and I feel like we're kind of getting that now. So we'll be talking about that in just a second. Happy 4th, K-Dogs Kennel. Hope you have a great one tomorrow. Damn, we got some Shaq ideas in the chat. Okay. Greg, Greg, I disagree with you. I think Bayley versus Bianca I Quit match is really great. I don't think it's not really great. We're going to talk about that in a minute. I'm liking the idea. Feels more like a threat to beat Bianca Belair. Yeah, I mean, I like Bayley and Bianca's work and stuff. You know, I like it a little bit better than what Bianca's been doing, you know, prior to that. A WrestleMania match was great. Some of the build, not so great. But this stuff, Bayley's just phenomenal. Bayley's working her ass off to make Bianca look good. And she's doing it. She's doing it well. And I think she's going to lose to Bianca Belair. And they had a good little promo on SmackDown. But with them, the build and stuff and, the story they're telling is a little better than, what the previous one was. But in the end, I probably are going to appreciate and like the matches more than the build. Yeah, I think Black Mask, you might be right about Baron Corbin maybe coming back as the Lone Wolf, but maybe a twist, kind of reverting back to that type of character. And I don't know if it's going to be, we'll see how the fans react to him. I don't know if it's going to kind of turn into a babyface deal for him. I think I don't know who he feuds with next. I don't know if Rick Boogs is ever going to get in the ring. If he does, I think maybe Corbin should get in there with him and like kick his ass or something. Just try to get himself built back up. But he's getting his cars repossessed. Apparently he has no money. I think he did sell his watch to Dolph Ziggler or something. I mean, how can you go from being that rich to losing everything just because you lost your crown? It doesn't really make a lot of realistic sense. Even if you have a lot of money and then you hit really big financial trouble, you can probably survive for a couple of months without, having to, look like you're homeless and digging Happy Meals out of the trash. He should have a little bit of money to live off of. This idea where he can't even afford his next meal is a little bit ridiculous, but I do think it's funny. And he's just doing a great job portraying that as well, which we'll talk about. Yeah, Money in the Bank is in 2 weeks. Money in the Bank is coming up on 16th, right? No, 18th, July 18th. 2 weeks from Sunday. All right. Let's get into SmackDown from last night. I thought this show was pretty good. SmackDowns have been solid. Couple of good, moments on the show. I love the Edge and Jimmy Uso stuff. I liked the Bayley and Bianca set up the I Quit match. Owens and Zayn was off the hook. Zelina came back, and we had some Money in the Bank qualifiers set for next week. And the card is starting to shape up. So overall, it was a pretty decent show. So it opened up with an Edge promo. Now, Edge, of course, returned and speared Roman Reigns, I think last week or whenever it was. And he's now back, and he's going to be getting the title shot at Money in the Bank versus Roman Reigns. So now he's on the mic, and he has, for the first time, gets to address what took place at WrestleMania, because you got to remember, he was stacked and packed at WrestleMania, right on top of Daniel Bryan, 1-2-3, extremely dominant victory for Roman Reigns. But Edge did have him beat a couple of times. He had that great spot with the bar in the teeth and pulling back on it, and he had him beat. And Edge said, he addressed this, he goes, my biggest fear is that Daniel Bryan, by being involved in that match, would cost me the match, but despite Daniel Bryan, despite Jey Uso, I'm not here to make excuses, but Roman kind of tends to rewrite history a little bit, and if you can pull up the video wall there, I can show you that I had him beat, and I know I can beat Roman, and more importantly, Roman knows I can beat Roman. And they show a screenshot of when he had the bar and he was pulling back kind of like in the STF on Roman, and he had it in his mouth, and the eyes, he goes, look at the eyes of Edge, look at the eyes of me, or whatever the fuck he said. And he goes, that's an image of a man who knows he lives inside your head. Oh, brother. Yeah, that's like my biggest pet peeve. I fucking hate that phrase. I don't know why. Live rent-free inside your head. Can we please stop saying that? God damn, you have to say it 5 times in every sentence. But anyway, he says, that's an image of a man that lives inside your head, and I am inevitable. Basically, I will beat you. I will be champion. You cannot avoid it. There's no getting past it. I can beat you. I can beat you, and I'm gonna fucking beat you. So I love this super overly confident Edge that knows that now that he's gotten the one-on-one match that he was supposed to get by winning the Royal Rumble, that he was cheated out of, he now gets that, and he's as confident as ever that nothing can stop him. And you believe him. You believe him. So it was a really good, strong promo by Edge. Now, he would be involved later on. We cut backstage right after this. Jimmy Uso is there telling Heyman that, hey, when Roman gets here, we're gonna call Edge out to the ring, and we're gonna put a stake in his ass or something like that, or stake in his heart. Forgot what he said, but basically says he's not going to allow Edge to talk to him and their family like that. So when Roman gets there, it's going to be Edge's ass, and that would kind of be what would close the show. After that, this is when we got Mr. Sad, Baron Corbin. So it's Baron Corbin and Apollo Crews taking on Big E and King Nakamura. So Corbin, is extremely sad. We saw some of the stuff with him backstage. He is really playing this up well. He's doing a great job, just being super mopey and like he doesn't have a reason to live, and he's just so defeated and so deflated and so broken, and he just can't pick himself up, and you believe it. Like, he literally looks like a guy that's super depressed. Who would ever thought that I wanted to give Baron Corbin a hug, or at least a pat on the back? It's going to be all right, bro. Come on, man. It's all good. So anyway, he's out there. He's kind of like letting his hair grow, which I think is kind of funny. He's like not shaving. He's giving up basically on life. So he's basically out there just kind of going through the motions. He's in the ring wrestling, and that's when Boogs gets on the mic. He's over on the stage because he was playing the guitar or whatnot. And he goes, attention, attention. Well, the person with the license plate, something King or whatever, your car is being towed. And then they show the video screen, Baron Corbin's car. I guess it's a really expensive, I don't even know what it's called, some expensive Jeep-looking thing. And they're loading it onto the truck. And McAfee's like, it's being repossessed. His truck's being repossessed. And he's sitting there like, you take my truck or whatever. And then he kind of turns around and eats a big ending from Big E and loses. And Corbin, just talk about being kicked when you're down, kicked when you're in the balls. He's already, if he's so broke, but he's driving a car like that, then they repossess it. I hope next week he pulls up in like, I don't know, like just a little Nissan Versa or something like that, or some busted old car. I'll never forget when I went to, have any of you ever gone to a show and done the thing where you wait near the parking lot and wait for the boys to show up and shit? We used to do that shit all the time in the 90s. And it was like 97 or 98. It was whatever year in the WWE they briefly brought in the Rock and Roll Express. Not the first time in 93 when they were doing the Heavenly Bodies thing, but later in the Attitude Era, they came in, I think, when they were doing the NWA revival, when Barry Windham was champion and Jeff Jarrett came in and Jim Cornette was a part of that. That's when I think the Rock and Roll were there. So we went to a show somewhere in North Carolina. I'm pretty sure it was Fayetteville. And we get there a little bit early, so we cruise down because we know Fayetteville's an interesting place to spot wrestlers, just the way the parking garage is set up. So we're kind of over there. There's a bunch of fans. They were all just kind of hanging out and chilling. And we're seeing Lincoln Town Car, the New Age Outlaws, The Rock, fucking China. Just all these like big stars coming in their Lincoln Town cars. It's what everybody drove back then, pulling up to the parking garage. And then there's this little ratty ass. It probably was a 10-year-old car. I think it was like a little oh my God, what were they called? Maybe like a broken down like Lumina or a Ford Taurus maybe, or something like that. It even had like dice in the window. The windows were rolled down. The hubcaps were rusty, and it pulls up and the Rock and Roll Express jump out. We fucking laughed our asses off. I don't know. Daniel, if you're in this chat, help me with my memory. Do I have that right? Wasn't it some like really shitty car that they pulled up in, and we laughed? Anyway, I don't know what made me think of that. But anyway, I hope next week Corbin pulls up in something like that, like just a really shitty, just old car. I mean, not a shitty car, just a car for somebody like him who probably makes a lot of money. For the Rock and Roll Express, when they pulled up there, I laughed so hard. You can't take the country out of people, no matter how successful and popular they are. That was a pretty amazing memory there. But anyway, I hope Corbin does something similar like that next week. I did like the promo of Bayley and Bianca a little bit. They set up their I Quit match because Bayley's been running her mouth and Bianca just can't seem to shake her, and she goes, you know what? In a lot of ways, I'm glad that you never shut the fuck up, because now I think the only way to beat you is to humiliate you and to just run you the hell out of here. So she was the one that proposes the I Quit match. Bayley kind of backs off, but then accepts. And that I Quit match is going to be good. That's going to be the end of Bianca and Bayley. And I would expect that they're going to be separated in the draft. You would think they'll probably move Bayley to Raw. In terms of Bianca's current run that she's in, I'm not having her drop the belt here at all to Bayley. So I think she beats Bayley. Still the possibility of some sort of a one-night cash-in. I think WWE, I'm like on the fence about it. Luckily, we have 2 briefcases. I think for your first big pay-per-view back with a packed house, for a night one cash-in could create a moment, and that's what WWE is all about, those moments. So if you did that, if you burned one briefcase at the pay-per-view, I'd almost be okay with it, because I do think it's going to generate one hell of a reaction. especially, well, maybe not with Bianca. Bianca's over, but I'm really hoping that Liv Morgan wins the women's Money in the Bank briefcase. But I don't know if it turns out to be Liv. I don't know if I would have her do a one-night cash-in. I might wait on her, or wait till there's a heel to cash in on. That would be really awesome if it was Liv. But if it was but if she went over to Raw or something and cashed in, like let's say Charlotte beats Rhea Ripley, fans are going to lose their shit. Twitter's going to be losing their mind. And then Liv Morgan's music hits. She cashes in on Charlotte, becomes the Raw Women's Champion. It would be a head-scratching decision. I'm like, okay, Liv Morgan came out of obscurity. Now she's the Raw Women's Champion on a completely different brand. But that moment that it would create, I'd love to hear it. I like Liv's kind of presentation. I think she's got great theme music. And the fans like her. She's been trying real hard to. She's another one that just, WWE, it feels like they're going to start something with her, and then they don't. How many times have they started and stopped shit with her? You barely forget about the lesbian angle that she was doing with Lana for a brief time that lasted, 4.5 seconds? So they come up with ideas, this will be great, and then they're like, we'll just forget about it now. So the story they're telling with Liv Morgan here, trying to prove herself to Sonya Deville, I think eventually, obviously, the end result here is going to be her making it into the Money in the Bank. But it would be even a better story if she could get to the Money in the Bank and win it and actually come back and cash in or whatever. So Bianca Belair and Bayley have set themselves up now to potentially have a cash in, in an I Quit match that could seemingly be pretty brutal, maybe the winner is a little bit, ripe or worse for wear, or could be taken advantage of, or vulnerable, I should say. But I think it all depends on who wins the briefcases, if it would make for a good one-night cash-in setup. But I think it's possible we see one, either on the men's or the women's side. So Bianca and Bayley, I Quit match set for Money in the Bank. After that, we had fucking amazing last man standing Money in the Bank qualifying match between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Their lifelong rivalry continues here. This felt like a blow-off of some kind. I think it could be. I think in the draft, you have to separate these guys unless you really wanted to make it fun. Because I think last time they did a draft one time where they both got drafted at the same show. And I remember, I think it was Owens. It was like, man, it might have been when Owens was a heel and Sami was a face or whatever. It would be funny if Sami got drafted to Raw and then he maybe does an interview backstage. I appreciate my time on SmackDown and everything, but I'm really happy to go to Raw because I fucking hate Kevin Owens. I'm so sick of his face, and I don't want to have to even be in the same building or the same arena or the same area code or zip code or state that he is, and I'm so happy to be going to Raw. Very next segment, Kevin Owens drafted to Raw. I think that would be funny. And then get Zayn's reaction would be classic. So anyway, heads up, props to these guys because they treat every match with each other as if it's WrestleMania. They go all out. You would have thought this was a SummerSlam match, Royal Rumble match, or for a championship because they just went out there, balls out. This is a really, really good qualifying match here, and they were using everything at their disposal. And I'm hoping in the last couple of Thunderdome shows here, they start doing shit like this where they tear it up a little bit. And Owens ramming Sami's head into the screens. Meet Jeremy, meet Jennifer, meet whoever the fuck. And then Pat McAfee's like, who's Steve? I think he said. Something like that. It was hysterical. And you can feel so much emotion by it. These guys sell for each other so well. And just Owens just fucking up Sami like that was great. They beat the shit out of each other throughout this entire match. They made the most use possible of their time. And they went out there like there was 20,000 fans. These guys are just mere days away from having live fans in the audience. And they're giving us a match like that. You can't top that. You're not going to be, at least not in the last few days of the Thunderdome. This is it. That's peak Thunderdome right there. Burn it to the ground now because there's no way you're going to be able to give the Thunderdome a better match send-off than that. That was incredible. The finish was amazing. Great finish on the end after Owens finally regains control of Sami Zayn. He's got him on the outside of the ring, and he's grabbing him by his face or his hair. And Sami is like, how did we get here? And Owens is like, it's karma, bitch. Karma, which is what Sami Zayn's been talking about. That's incredible. This is a story. This is how you do it. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, to me, get 90% of the credit. 10% goes to WWE for just giving them the match and allowing these guys to have this long rivalry. But I want this to continue. I want this to go all the way to the Hall of Fame. To where on and off again, these guys are always going to have an issue with each other. And I think looking back in the future, when we look back on history, we're going to say those guys made their mark together is just like, we've seen a lot of rivalries that have spanned lots of years, Flair and Hogan and shit like that, but a real one that's just, that was so well traveled and they never stopped hating each other. Even when they were friends, they still hated each other. So even if they teamed up, it's going to eventually implode, and they're going to be they're like little friends from across the street. I had friends like that when I grew up. The guy friend that I consider my best friend, that I grew up with, he and I used to have fist fights in the neighborhood and on the playground together. We would fight each other and then become friends 2 weeks later. So, we just never had last man standing matches with each other. So their entire rivalry has been great. So Owens screams at him, karma, picks him up, power bombs him through the announce table, immediately picks him right up, grabs him, power bombs him through a regular table that sat there, then picks him up by his beard and just picks him right up, and then bam, apron power bomb, which is I think is how when Owens, I think, turned on Sami Zayn like NXT. Didn't he apron bomb him or something like that? And that was the final blow. 3 consecutive power bombs onto furniture, and Zayn is out for the count. He does not answer the 10 count, and Kevin Owens wins and qualifies for Money in the Bank. Incredible. Fucking amazing match. Loved every minute of that, and that might have been, frankly, the best goddamn thing I've seen in quite some time. I mean, it was really good. So if you have not seen that match from last night, check it out. It was kind of middle of the show, but awesome. Like, it just had this pay-per-view feel. Free TV, they're giving this shit to us for. Giving this away on. So, especially not only is it on TV, but it's just days, weeks away from fans returning. And I'm like, you could have saved that one, but they don't care. They just go out there and do it, and they earn my respect. So awesome stuff there. Would love to see Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is one babyface I would actually really like to see hold the briefcase. I think Big E would be a fun one too, just because now he has pancake storage if he's able to carry that briefcase around. But Owens would be fun as well, and Owens would be worthy as hell. Worthy as hell. After that, man, oh man, this was the most underwhelming part of the show to me. We had the return of Zelina Vega. Now, this was kind of, not spoiled, but this was kind of reported or speculated on. Props to Sean Ross Sapp, who kind of broke the story that Zelina is going to be back. Expect to see her really soon. She was backstage at SmackDown last week, and the rumors were circulating prior to SmackDown airing that she was going to be on the show. So, okay, cool. Zelina's back. We've heard about that. We've been waiting for her to come back, wondering what type of role she's going to have when she comes back. So I think we come back from commercial. We go to the ring. Sonya Deville is in the ring with a microphone, and she just basically simply says, I'm here to announce the next entrant, not qualifying match, but the next entrant into the Money in the Bank. One of the most, I think she said most decorated stars. I forgot what term she used to describe Zelina Vega, but it wasn't accurate. And she goes, Zelina Vega. And then, okay, I mean, the audience is about to come back. She probably would have gotten a reaction if they brought her back in front of the audience. So they bring her back, and then the announcers, Cole and McAfee, unless I was hearing differently, it felt like they barely sold it at all, almost acted as if she hadn't been gone. When was she released? It was a while ago, right? Wasn't it like last year? So she's been gone for like 7 or 8 months, I think. And maybe I'm wrong on that. Feels like it's been that long. And they acted like she's just been off TV for a couple of weeks. They might have mentioned that she's returning or whatever, but they didn't make it like a big deal. You know how Michael Cole's like, oh my God. Oh, look who's back or whatever. It was like just a whimper. You talk about underwhelming. Holy shit. So she's now in the Money in the Bank. She comes out, she gets on the mic, and she says she's going to win. Big surprise. Doesn't say anything of substance at all. And that's when Liv Morgan comes out. She gets in the ring, and she says, this is horse shit. And Liv Morgan is right. Liv Morgan's been trying to prove herself. Liv Morgan has not been absent for 8 months. Why does Zelina, who last time she was on TV, she was losing all the time, you bring her back and she's allowed in, but Liv Morgan, who's been actually winning matches on TV, isn't allowed in? That's ridiculous. Liv says so. So Sonya goes, okay, you got another chance to prove yourself. You and Zelina, right now, ring the bell. Then we go to commercial. We come back. We get a 2-minute match between Zelina Vega and Liv Morgan, where Liv Morgan rolls her up. Zelina tries to roll Liv up first, holding the tights. Ref sees it, stops it, and then Liv rolls up Zelina. 1, 2, 3, gets a quick win on her. So Zelina's return to the company. I don't want to speculate and comment on something that I don't know about, but this feels like classic WWE spite. She did not want to cooperate with that Twitch shit, which, by the way, feels like it's completely fallen through. WWE apparently launched their own WWE version of Twitch, and they told the talent to stop their twitching, and then turns out that none of that shit was even followed through on. Zelina made a big stink about it. She didn't want to comply. She enjoyed her Twitch, didn't want to give it up, and resisted and got released for it. Even tweeted out, "I support unionization." That tweet has now been deleted, which a lot of fans are pointing out, that she sold out. I don't really like that term. You know, it's what she did best for her family and her life, and she made that own call herself. But if they're willing to take her back, pay her what she was paying before, maybe she's had time to sleep on it for a few months and realize that WWE might be the better place for her, and she decided to come back. She was at the PC months ago filming content or filming something. So her return has been in the works for quite some time. So I don't think she deleted that tweet like yesterday. I think she probably deleted it a few weeks back or even a few months back. And we're just now realizing it's gone. So, you know, I'm not going to really crucify her for that. But when you think about how she left and how she challenged WWE, how she even, you know, with that tweet and things like that, it's like those people that are involved in that concussion lawsuit. You're not seeing any of them really go into the Hall of Fame. I think a couple have. But, you know, WWE is spiteful. So I can actually see them, based on the asshole nature that they can have sometimes, being like, let's bring Zelina back in and punish her. You know, what if they're trying to get Aleister Black back as well, but he's decided to go to AEW? Apparently Andrade and Vicky have got some big surprise to unveil. I don't know why it would be him, but if it's that big, you know, it's got to be something kind of big. We know it's not going to be Zelina. So what is that? You know, so maybe Aleister Black has let the company know that he's going to go to AEW. So they're pissed. So they're not going to make things any better for Zelina Vega, which that's ridiculous because they're the ones that released him. You know, so if he got heat for going there, that's just a whole level of stupid that I can't even comprehend. So I don't know, but I just think that was a shitty way to bring her back. I was never a huge Zelina fan. I don't think she's that great in the ring. She's not even one of my favorite people there, but I liked her. And, you know, and I think she should be, I know she's not like a champion contender or somebody that Asuka should be fearful of or anything like that, but bringing her back the way they did, they're treating her as a very low undercard women's talent and, you know, somebody that is really not even on the level of Nikki Cross, to be honest. But she's going to be in the Money in the Bank. I don't expect her to win that. And now she's just going to be a SmackDown women's superstar. They're probably going to put her in a tag team here or there, really have no plans for her. I guarantee they have zero creative plans whatsoever for Zelina because she's not with her crew anymore of, you know, Garza and Andrade and shit like that. And she's kind of on her own. And the very first thing they do when they bring her back is bring her back with no explanation. They don't even make a big deal that it's her first time on TV in many months. And then she loses in a roll-up. Regretting that decision yet, Zelina? You might be. So that totally sucked. That was the one part of the show last night that I fucking hated. After that, we get Seth approaching Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville. He's pissed about them granting Edge the title shot. You know what? He's got a legitimate gripe there. They said they were going to give him one. They fucked him over. Edge has got it now. So Sonya decides to make Seth Rollins versus Cesaro next week in a Money in the Bank qualifier. So this can kind of go either way. I'm hoping that Seth wins. But I can also see Cesaro winning here and getting in the Money in the Bank and that just angering Seth more to where he's maybe completely off of Money in the Bank altogether. And then he costs Edge the title, which could give you that match. Where on the other side of that coin, Seth winning the Money in the Bank could also be a lot of fun. You could do a one-night cash-in with him, but I feel like Roman and Cena might be happening unless they did the cash-in and Seth did something else while Roman dealt with Cena in a non-title type of scenario, which could be possible. But Edge winning the Money in the Bank briefcase would be fun because it would kind of be like a throwback or whatever. But I don't really care, I guess, who wins because I'd like to see them both in Money in the Bank, and I think there would be a story with both, especially if Seth gets the briefcase. Maybe he feels like that's his only way to get a title shot since Sonya and Adam aren't cooperating with him. But then again, if he gets screwed and Cesaro gets in, that's just going to anger him further, which means he could, interfere in the Edge match. And I hope, Seth, that's all Seth did last night, from what I understand. Him and Becky Lynch got married, I believe, on Tuesday. They got married this week. And I really hope, probably not, but I really hope that segment with Pierce and Sonya and Pierce and Sonya and Seth was pre-taped before he got married or something. I would really hate that him and Becky flew all the way back and they could have enjoyed another weekend and their honeymoon or whatever, or, on vacation, and they brought him back all the way back from that just to film that 30-second spot backstage. That sucks. So that was one thing I noticed in there. I'm like, man, Seth didn't even have a match. He didn't even do anything that significant. And they had him come back to TV. I don't know. But anyway, Seth Seth being back at the top of the title card, I like. I'm glad to see him back there. Boy, Otis is not playing any games either. They've now made smooth Otis, cut his hair, his ponytail's gone. He's got smooth skin. He looks like Francis from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the guy that stole his bike. He's also the chubby guy on the basketball team in Teen Wolf. And he's been in a few other movies back in the 80s. I forget his name. But that's who he looks like now. It's a spitting image. And he just beat the pure shit out of Angelo Dawkins. This wasn't even a match. Montez Ford apparently is injured. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope he gets better soon. And Dawkins did not have much of a fight here against Otis. And when you think about last year, Otis was such that goofy-ass character, and he won Money in the Bank. They're trying to make him like a really believable heel who could mess you up. And so far, they're doing a good job. Dawkins made him look like $1 million out there. Just really took an ass-kicking from Otis. Otis splashed him and ended poor Dawkins. And he's pretty believable in there. So he's going to be a formidable heel to deal with now. I don't know if they're going to try to mostly direct him towards singles and Chad Gable's going to be more of his sidekick, or if they're going to continue the tag team with these guys. But either way, this is, I enjoyed the Otis and the Mandy stuff last year to a large degree just because of, the silliness. And I thought, they were actually telling a story there. And Otis was kind of an entertaining guy. But this is actually working. I wouldn't have thought that same Otis from a year ago could pull off a character like this. But, we'll see. But it's another thing where WWE's decided to make this transition with him. But can they follow through with it? What will it mean? Will it even go anywhere? In a few weeks, will they forget about serious ass-kicking Otis and go back to, making milkshakes in the back Otis or something like that, So, will they follow through with this, and will they make him, some sort of a legit threat to any babyface or any championship there? We'll see. But so far, so good. He looked pretty good in that outing with Dawkins. And then in the main event segment, we get Jimmy Uso, who's been backstage talking to Heyman about, wanting to get to Edge tonight. So right before he's about to go out to the ring, Heyman says, he's like, where's Roman? And Heyman's like, Roman doesn't operate on anyone's time but his own. You need to go out there and prove yourself, or whatever he said, basically sending out Jimmy alone because Roman's just using him, and Roman's a chicken shit, and he doesn't want to go out there and face this particular Edge who's extremely angry. So Jimmy calls out Edge. He says, Roman isn't there. Come on out here. I want to fight you right now, or whatever. Edge comes out to the aisleway with the mic, and he goes, can't you see what's going on? You were all talking tough. You were nobody's bitch, and you wanted to be different than your brother and all of this. And he's doing to you what he did to Jay until he ran Jay off. He beat him into submission. He beat him and assaulted him until he recognized him as the tribal chief. And now that Jay's gone, he's doing the same thing to you. He's using you. He's hiding behind you. And you think that Roman has laid this perfectly laid trap for me, but really the trap is for you. And he starts to make his way towards the ring now to fight Jimmy. Jimmy's even looking around like he's almost expecting Roman to kind of hop in there and have his back, but Roman is nowhere to be found. Him and Edge go at it. Edge gets on top, beats him down for a little while. I think Jimmy gets a little bit of offense in before Edge turns the tables, and I think hits him with a spear and then starts choking him, and he's got that crazy look in his eye again. And then he goes out to the outside of the ring, and basically to recreate the WrestleMania spot, he snaps off one of the pieces or one of the bars or brackets or braces or whatever off the steel chair and brings it into the ring and does the same spot where he kind of pulls back with the bar in Jimmy Uso's mouth. And it looked great. And Edge is just like, ah. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, fucking A, this is great stuff. This is so good because this is what I wanted during WrestleMania time. We all talked about when Edge won the Royal Rumble, this is going to be good. The promo, the build to Edge and Roman is going to be fantastic. Edge and Heyman going at each other. It's going to be spectacular. But it wasn't. Something was missing. Something was missing from it. And what was missing, I think, was a real true motivation for Edge to go after Roman Reigns, because prior to this, they never met before. They didn't have any interaction in the ring when Edge was around. Roman wasn't there yet. So these are two guys that really are seeing each other and battling for the first time, and there's no personal issue there. Edge feels like he was robbed at WrestleMania. He knows he can beat Roman. He had Roman beat. And because of circumstances, he wasn't able to win, but now he's got that one-on-one opportunity. And based on what he did at WrestleMania, he knows with every fiber of his being that he can beat Roman Reigns, and he's not going to put up with any of this bullshit of him using his cousins. And he's Edge. He's got the experience. He's the ultimate opportunist, and he is not to be messed with. And anything that they can come up with, he can come up with better. He's one of the most devious in the game, a guy that works equally well as a heel or a face or a tweener, which is kind of like what he is now, and he's extremely mad and angry and believable. Here we thought, when Edge came back, because Edge looks a little older now, his hair's getting a little gray, and, it's just what age does. And I was worried about Edge looking too almost like frail, because Roman's just such a big man, a magnificent physical specimen. I'm like, can Edge measure up, to this? Or is he going to look like somebody who, like it's a mismatch in the ring? I'm like, this guy physically can't compete with him, but Edge's intensity, and the way Edge is just doing things, I think, is just extremely credible, and it looks great. And for the first time, I now legitimately care about Roman Reigns versus Edge. At WrestleMania, I was excited for the match, thought it was going to be a cool match, but really that build left a lot to be desired. Here, it's a whole different story, and this is so good. So I'm excited for this match. This is going to be good shit. Even if they do the deal where Seth comes out there and costs Roman or costs Edge the match or whatever, I'd be fine with it, even though it's a bit predictable. And you would think, based on what happened here, after Edge just completely decimated Jimmy Uso, that Jimmy's going to be a little bit pissed at Roman Reigns for leaving him out there high and dry, because he was expecting Roman to have his back. He was expecting Roman to be there. He thought for sure that he'd jump in the ring or whatever, and he got his ass kicked for it. So next week, you would assume that Jimmy's going to be like, what the fuck, dude? And maybe that's going to be enough for him to say, you know what? Fuck this, Roman. You're on your own. And now Roman is up shit's creek, because now Jay's gone and now Jimmy's gone. He's going into a match with a guy who knows he can beat him. Roman's got no backup. There's nobody there to help him out. He's got nobody on his side. There's no way out of this match with Edge. But then an old friend shows back up. Since neither Uso is around, an old Shield member, Seth, who's now got an issue with Edge because he got a title shot in front of him. Maybe Seth either didn't qualify and beat Cesaro next week, or he did, and they held the Money in the Bank match prior to this, and he didn't win it. So now he's angry. So if he doesn't qualify or doesn't, whatever happens there, he doesn't come away maybe with the briefcase, or even if he does. But he's now even extra pissed, and so he's deciding that there's no way he's going to allow Edge to get this. But, then again, you would think that even if he's pissed at Edge for getting that title shot, what would be the motivation to screw him? You know what I mean? Maybe he feels like if he screws him, Roman gets the belt and gets to keep the belt, and Seth should say, to thank me for helping you, you need to give me a title shot. Maybe that could be the motivation in his character's head. But if I'm Seth Rollins, I don't necessarily know if I'm picking Roman over Edge in terms of somebody that I want to fight, although Edge is being extremely believable right now. So there's lots of ways you can do that, but Seth coming out there and helping Roman win makes a lot of sense, because then it can move Roman to Cena, and it can make Edge so mad where you can say, God damn it, this happened again. Okay, Seth, I'm going to deal with you at SummerSlam. I'm going to fucking kill you. And then after I'm done with you, I'm going to get another title shot. Regardless of who wins between Roman and Cena, I want the winner. We could potentially get Edge versus John Cena in 2021. Would you guys be in favor of that? Would you be into an Edge and John Cena match just for nostalgia, just for the hell of it? I think Edge probably should be working with other guys that he would never, be able to have a match with, but the opportunity could be there. Could even do Edge, Roman, Cena, triple threat or something like that. Maybe. So there's lots of good options here for SummerSlam, but in terms of Money in the Bank, this is so much better. I think Money in the Bank is going to be a better show than WrestleMania. And WrestleMania was good this year and stuff with the fans and everything, but it wasn't, even though the tagline was back in business, it wasn't really back in business yet. Now you feel like you're back in business. Now there's fans in the arenas. I went out to dinner last week. It was so fucking nice. I only keep about one mask at a time in my car now. I still wear them into grocery stores just out of courtesy. But anywhere else, I'm largely going without them. It's so fucking nice. And now you feel like we are back to business. We are back to reality, and the crowd is just going to feel like more of a type of show than before the pandemic. Because even WrestleMania didn't look right. It wasn't at full capacity. They had cardboard cutouts, and that storm tore through there and fucked up the visual a little bit. So here it's going to be like the way it was, before all this nonsense started. And there's going to be some good moments on this pay-per-view. That's for sure. So here's what we got. For Money in the Bank, Bobby Lashley defending the WWE title against Kofi Kingston. The build for that has actually been pretty good too. With the history of Kofi and MVP and all the work that's been going on there, I've enjoyed Lashley Kofi in its short little build than all of Lashley and McIntyre. Just in like 2 weeks, I've already enjoyed this more. So I'm looking forward to that match, even though I don't know what kind of scenario exists that sees Kofi win that title there, but I'm looking forward to the match because the build's been good. Roman and Edge, we just talked a lot about that. Roman defending the Universal title against Edge. Rhea Ripley defending the Raw Women's title against Charlotte. I think you could be setting yourself up here for a good one-night cash-in if you wanted, especially if you had Charlotte win. I'm really hoping they don't have Rhea Ripley retain here over Charlotte, but this is WWE we're talking about, and there's never any telling what the hell they have planned for her, so that one's kind of up in the air. Bianca Belair versus Bayley in an I Quit match, and again, I got to go with Bianca on that one as well. I mean, right now I got no titles changing hands in the title matches themselves, so I think the possibility of a one-night cash-in on the men's or women's side is very likely, considering all these matches. I'm hoping the champions walk out with the titles, at least, or walk out of those matches with the titles. Maybe not walk out of the pay-per-view with the championship, but at least those. So, a one-night cash-in based on the fact that it's your first night back, and if you don't do a one-night cash-in, you're not going to have any titles change at all. Just a couple of briefcase winners. I don't know if that's enough. You might want to give another moment in there. So I'm really thinking not both briefcases, but one will be cashed in, and they'll save the other one. And then the two Money in the Bank matches for the women, we've got Carmella, Zelina Vega, Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross, Naomi, and Asuka qualified for that. There's still a couple of spots open. We know Liv Morgan will wind up getting in, probably on SmackDown this week. Maybe Sonya, or next week, Sonya will offer her one final chance to get in, or maybe offer her a qualifying match. That's what they should do. Stop doing this you have to prove it shit, because they're just entering people in. They put somebody in that's been off TV for 8 months. So Liv shouldn't have to prove herself anymore. Just give her a qualifying match next week, unless they want to give her one more proving ground match and then the qualifying match on the go home, which could set up a great story for her if she does win the briefcase. So she's kind of like my early pick based on the field of who we have in there right now. She's not even in the match yet, but she's kind of the one I'm hoping wins the most. Or Nikki Cross. Gotta love Nikki. Alexa Bliss might be fun. But so far, I'd like to see Morgan. Men's Money in the Bank. We've got Drew McIntyre, Ricochet, John Morrison, Matt Riddle, Kevin Owens, and Big E. And that is that almost next week we got Cesaro and Seth, and that should round out the field. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, Seth or Cesaro will be 7, so I guess they will add one more. Isn't it weird how Raw qualified all their people at once? I mean, they did the thing last week with McIntyre, but everybody else was qualified the week before. But SmackDown's taking their time. Raw's got the 3-hour show, so they just knocked all their shit out. You would think they would want to stretch some of those qualifiers out to give you a chance to put on something decent, some matches that have some actual meaning on your ridiculously long 3-hour show. But they knocked all of their qualifiers out so quick, leaving SmackDown to kind of play catch-up here. And we have another qualifier next week. And then after Seth and Cesaro, I don't know who gets put in last. Maybe Randy Orton resurfaces. We'll find out where Riddle and Orton are going this Monday with those two guys. So maybe Orton comes back and he wants to get in, but I think Raw is done. They have their 4. They have their 4 guys. So now I think SmackDown needs 4. No, you guys suck, man. You guys are no fun. No, I want to see Edge and Cena. That'll be awesome. Zane G, appreciate the $10. Would you be sold on if Rollins had won the briefcase, he would cash in on the winner the same night, or would you have him wait until SummerSlam or something? Like I said, I think a one-night cash-in on one of the briefcases is likely. So, for example, if Liv Morgan were to win the briefcase, I don't know if I would have her cash in. Maybe I would, but I'd almost have her, she'd have to cash in on a heel. So I'd want her to jump over to Raw and cash it in over there, whoever wins between Rhea and Charlotte, or cash it in on Bayley if Bayley somehow beats Bianca Belair. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Bianca's going to keep the title. And as much as I love Liv Morgan and would love for her just to be kind of given a launching pad there to to the championship, I'd rather have her do that on the Raw side, because beating Bianca is not something that I think the crowd is just really going to love and be happy for Liv. Where if she beats Charlotte or something, that's going to be quite the moment there. And like I said, I laid out the scenario. Maybe Charlotte does beat Rhea Ripley, and WWE it's like two birds with one stone. They could, number one, have Charlotte beat Rhea, maybe even with some help, maybe cheat, something like that. It gives her another title on her legacy, because they want her to have her break Ric Flair's record at some point. So it gives her another title, and it gives the fans a really happy moment, because they're going to be pissed, drooling, frothing at the mouth, throwing feces at their computer screens and on Twitter for a minute and a half there while Charlotte is celebrating. But then when Liv Morgan comes out, it's going to be euphoric, especially if she beats Charlotte Flair. And I can feel the crowd. I can feel the ovation. I can hear the pop, with her music playing, beating Charlotte. Fans will go nuts. It'll be good stuff. So one or the other needs to switch. But if Seth does it, I almost think Seth would have to jump to Raw or something, but I think he's going to stay on SmackDown. I don't know. I think it just depends on who wins the briefcase if I have it a one-night cash-in. Seth would make sense, because he feels that he was robbed of the title shot and they gave it to Edge, so he could just come and make his own luck there and walk out of SummerSlam of Money in the Bank with the championship, setting up Edge and Rollins at SummerSlam for the championship. And then Roman and Cena can do some. Maybe Roman comes out with Heyman and they're demanding a shot back at the championship or some shit like that on the next SmackDown. And then Cena comes out and says, hold on, before you even get to that championship, you got to deal with me first, or something like that. And they could take the title away from Cena and Roman. But I kind of think the title should stay on Roman, because they've already set that table last week on SmackDown. It looked like Roman might even do something crazy like forfeit the title because nobody can beat him and there's nobody left. So if he gets past Edge, he's probably going to say the same thing again on SmackDown, and that could prompt out John Cena to come out to the ring and maybe step ahead of Seth Rollins again, pissing him off even more, but he's going to have to deal with Edge anyway. Something like that I think could be fun. But I think with Roman kind of teasing that there's nobody else to challenge and stuff, I feel like that's kind of setting up the table for you know what I mean? So we shall see. Seth as the manager of a Burlington coat factory, it feels like that, right? I'm not sure who you're talking about teaming up together, but if it's Edge and Cena, that would be awesome. That would be cool. I don't think Otis squints. I just think that's the way he's got that, those larger guys, they have that little smushed in face. That's all. He looks like he's squinting, but I don't think he is. He's not squinting on purpose. Yeah, but I like this. I like this Otis, this rendition of him. It's pretty fun. But anyway, all right, I got to get out of here because I got to head to work. We're going to be busy as shit tonight. It's holiday weekend here at the beach, so I'm going to get packed up here and head off to work. Keep an eye out on the channel tomorrow. As of right now, I have no video scheduled, but there is a chance I'll come up here and talk about a little bit about the Lex Luger WWE Icons doc. I think that might be fun. 4th of July content, but I'm not 100% sure what I have going on yet tomorrow. So at the very latest, you'll see me Monday night after Raw, and I think this Raw, we're down to like the last couple of Thunderdomes here. Raw and SmackDown this week are from the Thunderdome, and then I think the Raw on the following week, I want to say, might be pre-taped. The go-home Raw to Money in the Bank, I should say, I think is going to be pre-taped, I think this week. And then the go-home SmackDown to Money in the Bank will have fans. So we're down to what, 3? How many shows we got? I think it's like 3. It's getting close. That's all I know. So that's really exciting. We are down just to our last few Thunderdome shows. It's so exciting. So we got that to look forward to. You guys have a great rest of your day, great rest of your holiday weekend. Take care. I will either see you tomorrow briefly for a little Lex Luger video, or we'll be up here Monday after Raw for the review. You guys have a good day.